Patriots Podcast with Nick Cavins.
This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. You also want to take the guesswork out of buying NFL tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We are live on a Tuesday to react to a win, a dominating win against the Panthers by the Patriots on Sunday at Gillette. Greg, I ask you this. From 30,000 feet through the first month, the overall picture, has this football team fallen short of your expectations, met your expectations, or exceeded your expectations?
I would say from 10,000 feet, they've exceeded my expectations. I did not expect them to be, 2-2 coming out of the first four. I expected them to be around, 1-3, and they could have been, but they aren't. They're 2-2. So, I think they're doing pretty well now. The closer you get, the little different, it looks. I mean, I think I'm curious your thoughts on this, Nick. But I mean, if we were before the season, if we would have said through 4 weeks, that you'd feel better about where the offense is and where Drake Maye is than where the defense is, I think we'd both be a little bit surprised. So I think they're slightly ahead of expectations at this point. And, that's promising. I'm just not sure exactly what to make out of it.
As far as overall, I look at the special teams, feels like where they should be. They got off to the rocky start, but I think they've been better the last couple of weeks. You look at the offense, I agree with you. They've been better than I thought they would be. I thought they had a ceiling about the middle of the league. 15th, 16th felt right to me, but they've got off to a faster start than I anticipated. And defensively, I also agree. I thought this defense had enough talent. That's why we say on paper, but I thought they had enough talent on paper to be, just outside the top 10 in defense if everything fell right. Now, of course, if you told me Christian Gonzalez was going to miss the first 3 weeks, I would have lowered my expectations, but I want to get back to the offense. We'll get to the defense in a minute. I want to ask you about ceiling. Again, from 10,000 feet, 30,000 feet, however high up you want to be. Have you changed your mind about the ceiling of this offense after the first month?
I would say yes. I mean, I figured they'd be middle of the pack-ish by the end of the season.
Yeah, me too.
And that they're certainly there and a little bit higher than that. After 4 games, I'm pretty shocked, and not really much of a running game to speak of, or at least a consistent running game. I mean, I think if we went back and talked about our expectations for the season and sort of what it looked like if the Patriots were going to get off to a good, solid start, it would have been the ground game being successful, setting up sort of play action and allowing them to make some, bigger plays that way. The defense would, really step up and be a pain in the rear. And the special teams would be really good. And I do think that's a good point by you, that the special teams, really bad start for that unit, which is shocking because they were really good all of last season. Jeremy Springer came back. Of course, there's a lot of, they've changed a lot of personnel, just like the entire roster. So perhaps that had something to do with it. But I think that's what it looked like. And, now to see that it's really sort of Drake Maye in the passing game. It's the Patriots on defense are really good against the run. They're shaky against the pass. They get, I would call it maybe timely pressure, as opposed to, I thought they'd be a little bit more consistent across the board with the amount of talent that they have up front. They have a tough time against the pass. I mean, basically anything other than probably going forward, Christian Gonzalez, Carlton Davis, okay, but you don't feel great about that because it seems like he's 2 flags a game, either him or Alex Austin. The safeties are work in progress. The linebackers have been subpar, which we sort of anticipated. But, I think that where the offense is right now, that's surprising. And they're ahead. They're definitely ahead of schedule. So where can they get? I'm not really sure, but I know that you can just see Drake Maye's comfort growing and also the trust in some key guys. And that's going to keep building.
I couldn't agree with you more as far as what I kind of envision this offense being, especially early in the year. I thought, hey, look, Drake Maye is going to be learning this offense. And, there's a lot to ingest as you go along. And Josh McDaniels will slowly put more in the cup, as he says. And that's what I expected was run game early, 12 personnel, utilize your 2 tight ends, establish that run game, and everything would be off of that. And that would allow Drake Maye to kind of breathe into the season with a softer schedule at the beginning of the year. It's been the complete opposite. This team has not run the football outside of the first half against Miami consistently enough. And it's really been on Drake. And that has been the surprise. And it's been a pleasant surprise that Drake has handled things as well as he has, which we will get to a little bit later because I want to stick with the big picture here. I just asked you about the ceiling for the offense. Let's flip it. How concerned are you, big picture, about this defense?
I'm pretty concerned. I do think that they'll get better, I think, over the course of the season. The longer that, guys like, especially like a Craig Woodson, whatever they do at the other inside linebacker spot next to Spillane, you're hopeful that comes along. And also, I would say some of the timing as far as the games and the pass rushes up front. Gonzalez, he gets his legs under him a little bit more. He's going to be certainly a shutdown option. I do worry a little bit about Carlton Davis, and also his durability has, always been an issue. So I'm worried about the defense. If there's any portion of this team that has underwhelmed to this point, it's that. I mean, when you look at it, we know they're not overly talented outside of the defensive line and Christian Gonzalez, but this has been a lot rougher, than I thought. I mean, even on Sunday against the Panthers, offense that was challenged to begin with, they're down Xavier Legette, they're down Sanders, the tight end. Then they lose Moore, is he a tight end or a big wide receiver?
Yeah.
After the first play, then they lose. They were already on a backup guard. Then they lose that one, Zavala, who stinks, and they have to bring in a third stringer. I mean, that unit isn't very good. I mean, I actually think that they're better than what they showed if they're somewhat healthy. As good as it looked on the scoreboard, I mean, the Panthers still drove into Patriots territory like 7 out of their 10 drives. And at this point, that Carolina Panthers offense reminded me a lot of like the Patriots offense the previous 2 years, where you just know, with injuries and other things, they're just undermanned. And there's like a ceiling of what they can do. And basically like the Panthers offense was like a 40 to 50 yard offense, and they just don't have the talent. It's too hard for them. One negative play screws them up to go the rest of the 30. And we know that's not going to be the case on Sunday night. So, and also, the schemes, we've talked about it before. The Panthers come right out, go right down the field without any issue, averaging 10.3 yards per play. I've just been sort of underwhelmed by the whole unit, and I do have a lot of worries about that side of the ball.
This defense goes as the defensive line goes. When the defensive line picks up its play, when the defensive line is playing well, the defense plays better. When you look at the linebackers, I think Robert Spillane the last 2 weeks has been much better than he was the first 2 weeks, which is the really good news. Christian Ellis continues to suck. I don't know why he continues to start. At this point, I'm starting Gibbons. I'm not telling you Gibbons is awesome, but I think Gibbons has been the better player out of the two. It's like every single first drive, Christian Ellis messed up 2 or 3 times on that first drive against Carolina on Sunday. And it's every single game he screws up at least twice on the first drive as Greg throws his computer. It's out of frustration. I'm frustrated too, Greg. I want to throw a computer when I watch Christian Ellis play. It's the nonstop screw-ups from that guy. They drive me crazy. Again, I don't know why he's starting. The secondary through the first 4 weeks has been inconsistent. Carlton Davis in coverage has been mostly good, even though he got beat by Tet on a deep ball. And if Bryce Young could have connected, that would have been 7. But Carlton Davis, for the most part, in coverage has been good, aside from the penalties, as you said, which is an issue. Alex Austin put in the role as the number 2 guy. He fell short of my expectations. He wasn't good enough. Obviously, Christian Gonzalez coming back will help that secondary, but you're still got Craig Woodson, who's playing 99% of the snaps. He's been a little up and down. I know Mike Vrabel cheered him on in the postgame in the tunnel, but, he's been a little up and down, as you would expect a rookie with so much on his plate playing as many snaps as he has. So the defense has kind of been up and down, but the defensive line, I do think Milton Williams has been really good. I thought Barmore was terrific on Sunday. He single-handedly screwed up 4 or 5 plays for Carolina. And the other part of that, Greg, I do think you look at it and you say some guys made plays for the Patriots, but there were some critical when Carolina passed midfield, there was some critical third down plays where Bryce Young was a disaster. He was just a disaster. Rewatching the game yesterday morning, I mean, there were plays that just made you scratch your head from Bryce Young. So, yes, some of it was the Patriots defense, certainly, but some of it was also Bryce Young not being very good. And
also, how about those like 3rd and long draw plays? Like when you're on the border of field goal territory.
I mean, it just didn't make any sense. So defensively, I thought they were good. It's a step. I thought it was a step towards, some progress. And if you really look at it, the second and third quarters against Pittsburgh, they were great. The second and third quarters against Carolina, they were really good. And you just hope that momentum carries. Of course, we'll talk about the game later this week, but Buffalo is going to be a completely different challenge. I want to get back to Gonzalez. It's 1 week that he's been out there. How would you say he played, and what kind of difference, if any, did he make?
I thought he played all right. I thought he had a couple of I'm just looking at my sheet. He had one iffy run play, a couple iffy pass coverage plays where, Tet McMillan got him. And I would say the difference that he made, I certainly, it's to my eye from the press box, it seemed like they played a lot more press man, that once Gonzalez was in there, this is what we're going to do. I assume, look, this guy hasn't played a full football game in a very long time. And so, his legs didn't look quite right, what you expect. I expect him to get a lot better by the week. It's just, is this going to be that they want to play more press man? Is this going to be good for everybody? It's good for Gonzalez. Probably, Carlton Davis is pretty good in man coverage. Yeah, he gets handsy at times. We knew this when they signed him. How is that going to work with the safeties and the linebackers? I just sort of worry about this week against the Bills. Like, Gonzalez is being back is so new, and the coaches don't have enough data on film for exactly what they want to do. So I sort of worry about how it's going to work, how it's going to look this week. But, going forward, I think it can get a lot better. But it's good to have Christian back. He makes a difference. Just the other guys should be ready to be picked on a little bit more.
I don't want to get into too many specifics because we'll have plenty of time later in the week to get into the Buffalo matchup. But does this defense, Greg, have an opportunity to maybe change your thoughts about how they could be on that side of the ball with this matchup on Sunday night?
Oh, without question. I mean, what they've faced so far, the defense so far, they've faced, where is it? I'm sort of looking at my notes. Okay, so the defense has played the Carolina Panthers were 28th in offensive DVOA. Vegas was 26th, Pittsburgh 16th, Miami 19th. The Bills are number 1. They're 3rd in pass, number 1 in rush. If the Patriots can go into Buffalo on Sunday night and hold their own against the Bills and Josh Allen, hell yeah, they have my respect, and it changes a lot. I'm just not holding my breath that that's going to happen.
All right, we're going to get into the offense and what they did against Carolina on Sunday in this big win by the Patriots to get to 2-2 heading into Buffalo on Sunday night. But first, Greg wants to tell you about our friends at PrizePicks.
PrizePicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cash. With millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks. On PrizePicks, you can mix and match player projections from different sports, combine your favorite basketball players, coming very soon, with players from baseball, hockey, esports, and much more. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. PrizePicks puts members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, that's today, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineup. Download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
And for those listening, we ask that you subscribe to the podcast, like, and leave a review. For those watching the show on CLNS, especially those watching live right now, hit that like button. Subscribe to the Patriots Press Pass YouTube channel where you can find our show and a lot of other great Patriots content. Also, please make sure to turn on your notifications so you know the instant a new video drops. And you want to check Greg out along with Mike Giardi at Boston Sports Journal. $50 for the year. It's a great deal. Patriots film, the best sources around. So go check them out at Boston Sports Journal. All right. We said our piece about the defense. Let's talk about the other side of the ball. I was impressed by their offense against Carolina. I've read your work. You seemingly were impressed by the offense against Carolina, albeit it was a banged-up defense for the Panthers. Not everybody was out there, but what'd you like about what you saw from Josh McDaniels and Drake Maye?
Yeah, I thought McDaniels, had a great plan against the Panthers. I really sort of going into this one, and on paper going into this was by far the best defense that the Patriots have faced. And so I was looking forward to this challenge. And, I do like the Carolina defense. One of the things that I underrated about this that I guess I wasn't quite paying attention to is, how beat up they are on the edge of their defense. So they had to, Nick Scorton, rookie, has been starting for them. You knew that they were going to be able to take advantage. They didn't have they're really down to backups because Pat Jones and DJ Wanham are really sort of their starters, and then Scorton and DJ Johnson, along with the Princely cat, the other rookie.
Let me say it, Princely Uman Yellen for you. Princely.
There you go.
Yeah.
Like I said, the princely dude cat. So they were really like sort of scraping the barrel there, and Josh McDaniels just toyed with those guys all day. They sort of stayed away from Derek Brown and, Ashawn Robinson and Turk Wharton, all those guys in the middle. They sort of stayed away from them. And I thought Josh did a great job of sort of pressing the edges. Poor DJ Johnson was getting spun around like a top. He was getting sucked in on play action and movement. And, I thought that Josh did a great job with that. He schemed up some, big plays. It's funny, like a week after Mike Vrabel was whining about, we got to score touchdowns and we got to have explosive plays. Like, Josh was basically like, well, here you go. Here's, 5 touchdowns, and here's a bunch of explosive plays, including like 4 on one drive, their first offensive scoring drive, which was just McDaniels showing off. But, I thought it was very impressive, and Drake was, in command, had another, really good game. And I think, what's interesting, this game, and also something that's developed. So, look, the Panthers were a little bit challenged on the personnel level on defense in this game, but also something that's developing is that because of Drake's legs and how McDaniels each week he's sort of incorporating a little bit more, you could see that the defenses are scared about it. And it's causing them to get a lot more conservative in their calls. They're afraid of his legs. They're keeping eyes on him. That's opening things a little bit more. So I think that things are slowly starting to come together, and Drake's just getting more and more comfortable, and he's getting more comfortable with the guys that he can trust. Like, we saw what's interesting, Nick, is that they played 4 games and they had a different leading receiver in every game. It was Booty, and then I think Stevenson, and then Hunter Henry, and now Diggs. So, just building trust, that kind of stuff is just increasing by the week.
Yeah, I dove deep into this with Locked On Patriots. If people want to check out the episode on Josh McDaniels, today's episode, I just think he's been really good since Miami. Obviously, an uneven week 1. The second half against the Raiders was an abomination. But Miami, Pittsburgh, and Carolina, McDaniels has been on a heater. And I know there's a contingent of people, for whatever reason, that say he's not a good offensive coordinator, that Tom Brady made him. You and I have disagreed with that from the very beginning. We have tried to tell people that McDaniels is a good, if not very good, one of the best offensive coordinators in football. And, I just thought, you mentioned it, the perfect example was, he was in his bag. You said he showed off. But that first scoring drive for them was just, that was a fantastic sequence of play calls when you've got Hooper on the tight end screen, which goes for 20 plus. Then you run the jet sweep with Antonio Gibson coming out of the, lined up at the line of scrimmage as wide receiver, gets the jet sweep handoff for 20 plus. You follow up that jet sweep on the very next play with the fake jet sweep to, I think it was Henderson, and then you give it to Stevenson instead, and you get another 20-plus run. You want to look at sequencing. You want to see an offensive play caller set up a defense right out of the gates. It's precisely what Josh McDaniels did. The first drive, I thought, was they had an opportunity. One of Drake's only mistakes was he threw it a little high and behind Kayshon Boutte. Boutte was open. If Drake Maye makes that throw, who knows? They probably score on that drive to start the game. But I think McDaniels has been really good. And I think Drake Maye, given the circumstances, if you look this up, Greg, and I've been saying this for the last couple of weeks, this began in Miami. Drake Maye on 3rd and 4th down particularly has been excellent. And he was that again in this game against Carolina. One of the plays, it's what you and I have talked about with Drake, which is if you're looking at a tough situation, a 2nd and long in the red zone, which is what the Patriots were looking at one point during this game. How does Drake Maye manage that? And it was 2nd and long. He finds Stefon Diggs, who sits. He gets 5 or 6 yards to make it a manageable 3rd down. And then on that 3rd down, he throws a Garrett Crochet, shout out Red Sox, starting that series tonight. He throws a Garrett Crochet fastball, threads the needle to Hunter Henry at the half-yard line on a 3rd down, have-to-have-it type throw. That's the kind of stuff that you see. And you're seeing more of it in this late down production, in the late down success from Drake Maye is what has me the most positive about him through the first month, because you can sit there and you can question the defenses for sure. But you and I know, Greg, even mediocre defenses, when you're staring at 3rd and long, 4th down situations, red zone situations, Drake has improved in those, in those football, very difficult challenges, situational football, so to speak. And I think that's what should have people excited is that production in those specific instances when he's slowing the game down a bit and he's doing what he should be doing.
Yeah, and I think this was similar to the Dolphins game in that, you look at it, certainly, that pass that you mentioned, that's the one sort of pass that I have circled in terms of his plus plays in this game. But, you wouldn't say like it wasn't one of those games where overly, like he had a ton of like outstanding plays. Really, he's just managing the game, and then in a few crucial spots, like a handful of times, he's he's coming up with a play. And like, the Hunter Henry and the seam, the Hunter Henry touchdown pass where I saw him rolling over there and I was like, what the hell is he going to do? And for him to fit that ball in, that was like a Josh Allen type play. So you could see it sort of in the games that they've won. What's been the constant? Drake takes care of the ball for the most part, makes good decisions, takes a profit, isn't afraid from, 2nd and 10 or 2nd and long to get them in 3rd and manageable. And then he finds a way to make the, 5 or 6 plays that allow the team to win. And the losses, he hasn't done that. And so it's sort of, as a young quarterback, it's inconsistent, but at least you're starting to there's no way that I thought 4 games in the season that we'd see him do that, play like a mature, in control game, sort of like Josh Allen, like once he matured. Remember the big difference in Josh Allen from when Bill Belichick used to kind of snort about Josh Allen, and quite frankly, so did I, about, how good he was. And everybody could see the talent, but you're just like, this dummy isn't going to take a profit. He's going to try to be a hero. And then at a certain point, he's going to turn the ball over. And then suddenly he'd play against the Patriots. The Patriots would play him very conservative. And Josh Allen's like, fine, I'll just dink and dunk all over the place and I'll be okay with that. And we'll win the game. And I'm fine with that. 4 games in the season, Drake's doing that. He's done that 2 out of the 3 games or 4 games. And I didn't think that was possible. So that's a big development in my mind.
The Hunter Henry touchdown, I just want to point out, that's not an easy play.
I know.
And if you're watching it, some people might watch it and go, oh, it's like a 5-yard pass. Well, first of all, he's bootlegging into pressure. He's got 3 defenders in front of him, 1 closer to him, and then 2 guys. And if you slow it down, and Michael Hurley, by the way, shout out to him, did a great job of posting a video on Twitter yesterday, and he slowed down the video to when Drake is letting the football go. And his body angle, his arm angle, and he fits it between 2 Panthers who have their hands out. He just squeezes it right between the 2, and he hits Hunter Henry fully in stride. That is not an easy play. And if you see it from the angle that Michael Hurley has, and the slowdown, I think you will respect and appreciate that play even more. One more thing I want to say about Drake Maye, and I said this on Locked On Patriots this week. I'm going to cross sports here. My apologies to Felger and Maz. But it was a Paul Pierce-like game on Sunday. And one of my favorite quotes of all time in sports is, Pierce was asked one time about, what he has to do to win games and blah, 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 blah. And Pierce said, I give the game what it needs. And what he meant by that is, if I got to score 40, I'm going to score 40 for my team to win. But if I got to score 25 and dish out 10 assists and grab 8 rebounds, I'm going to do what I got to do at the best of my ability to win the football game. That's how I felt about Drake on Sunday. It wasn't some outstanding, oh my God, play after play, you're jumping off your couch. But he gave the game what it needed. When you needed him to do something on 3rd down, he did it. When you needed something on 4th down to Diggs, he did it. When you need that play to Hunter Henry, so when you needed those 5 or 6 plays, he came through for you, and he gave the game what it needed. I want to ask you about Stefon Diggs. Was it a coming out party for him of sorts on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it's from talking to people around the team that it's really a matter of a couple of things. Him, getting his legs under him. I mean, people got to remember, how amazing his timeline has been. And so he's getting a little bit better every week. And, I thought he really showed a nice burst. He doesn't do it all the time. And he even referenced this in the post-game press conference. But, sort of the under crosser that he ran for, about 30 yards where Kyle Williams and Demario Douglas cleared out, which Drake could have thrown to any 3 of them. They were all open on that play. For him to run away from Mike Jackson like that, and, Mike Jackson's a good, solid cornerback, impressive. And so I think it's that physically, I think he's feeling better. He's getting his legs under him. I also think that he is getting more comfortable in the offense and, what they're asking him to do. Now, I would not, people automatically, I think, jumped on this. Well, Steph Diggs was, in the slot more. Well, he did play more plays. That goes to sort of the legs being a little bit better at Pop Douglas's expense, as he only played 8 snaps. But his slot usage rate was actually, it was the lowest since week 1. So, not dramatically different. I just think, McDaniels drew up some things. I think there's more and more comfort between Maye and Diggs. And, that's great. I don't know if we're going to see this every week, but certainly good to see it this week.
Just want to highlight what you said about the numbers, because I pulled this from your column this week about Diggs. So as Greg wrote at Boston Sports Journal earlier this week, according to Pro Football Focus, Diggs was in the slot on 41.9% of his snaps against Carolina. Again, that's his lowest number since week 1, which was 27.5%. So again, 41.9% on Sunday. He was at 48.4 against Miami and 56.4 against the Steelers. So he played more in the slot against Miami and against Pittsburgh than he did against Carolina. So yes, that narrative is not true. But the overall snaps, I want to give the specific numbers because Greg mentioned that. He played 31 snaps on Sunday against Carolina. He actually played 39 snaps against Pittsburgh. But as far as snap rate, snap count rate, the percentage he's out there, Diggs was out there for 63% of the offensive plays. And against Carolina, he was out there for 53% of the offensive plays against Pittsburgh. So he was out there more often when they were snapping the football offensively. So those are the numbers to support Greg's points there. You were not overly impressed, Greg, by Mack Hollins, were you?
No, I thought he had some, and you look, it's a tough position that they ask those guys. And also one thing I want to bring, since we're talking about this, in Diggs and the slot and all this, because, you hear a lot of talk by the talking heads and also fans like, why don't we just make Diggs the full-time slot? It's because that slot is asked to do a lot of dirty work in this team. And Steph Diggs has sort of, how do I put this? He's been inconsistent on how much he wants to do that. A couple weeks ago, he passed on a rub route. Then he executed the rub route in the next game. This game, he had a chance to root out a linebacker. He decided to block somebody else. So like guys like Diggs and Demario Douglas, like they can't be in the slot all the time, because if Drake changes the play to, say a pass to a run, then, they got to go in there. They got to take on a safety or a linebacker.
Right.
And that's not, ideal. And so you got to sort of mix and match things. And McDaniels knows what he's doing in that regard. So I would just let him. Speaking of, the slot, Mack Hollins gets out there because, he's bigger, physical, strong guy, but, his blocking has been sort of hit and miss. Like that one play, God, I keep hitting my computer. There was that one play that was very curious. It was after a penalty. I don't know if it was 1st and like 24 or 1st and 20, something like that. And they did an end around to Kyle Williams. Do you remember that play, Nick?
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
And I agree. Like I was just like, really? An end around on like 1st and 20? Normally you only do end arounds if you think you're going to get pressure, or, you just want to get the defense sort of over aggressive, and then you use that against them. And, long yardage, you figure they're just going to drop back and be in zone or whatever. And that's basically what the Panthers did. But on that play, Mack Hollins had a chance to, if he executed his block, the Patriots had on a hat, and that play was actually going to do something, especially if Kyle Williams turned the ball upfield a little bit earlier. So, there's plays like that with Mack Hollins. He had the touchdown. That was good. But I just don't know, Nick, with, Diggs playing more, Maybe you want to get Kyle Williams a few more snaps. Kayshon Boutte, I know he wasn't used much and hasn't been in the past couple weeks. I would stay away from J.C. Horn, which it seems like the Patriots did in this game. But now you're just wondering, is the juice worth the squeeze with Mack Hollins in terms of his blocking ability and all that? Certainly, I love him in the red zone, maybe like a post up on third down type of thing. But, I don't know. This is starting to remind me of who was the guy that I always ragged on that Matt Patricia used. He was a big wide receiver, and they just used him for.
Was it little Jordan Humphrey?
Yes, little Jordan Humphreys. He's starting to get a little Jordan Humphreys vibes with Mack Hollins. So we'll see how that goes.
I think you're right, though, when you say hit and miss, because I did think there were some occasions here where the downfield blocking was good from the Patriots receivers. If you go back,
shout out Pop Douglas.
Yes, if you go back to the fake jet sweep handoff to Stevenson, I'll give Hollins his flowers. He's downfield and sets up a pretty good block that helps Stevenson spring free. So he did his job on that play. And then you had third quarter, you had the first offensive drive out of halftime. Perfect example of good downfield blocking, I thought, from your receivers and even your tight end in Austin Hooper. You had the Travion Henderson jet sweep where he got 13 yards. If you watch that play, Diggs, Hooper, and Hollins are downfield blocking, which opens up Henderson and gives him some space. And then you just mentioned it, Greg, as well. That Hunter Henry touchdown, we waxed poetic about Drake Maye on that play because it's a really good play by him. But shout out to Pop Douglas, because I know a lot of people are going to sit there and say, he blocked two guys, and he did. He blocked two guys on that play downfield, which opened up the boundary for Henry to tiptoe down there. But I also just want to mention, Pop, he didn't play a lot in this game. He had 8 or 9 snaps. And I think he played, if I'm correct, I think he played 2 snaps in the first half. So for a guy, look, and this is being a professional, so I don't want to go too over the top, but it is a good thing that you have somebody like Pop Douglas who plays 2 snaps in the first half, and then he's out there in the second half, not a big dude, downfield blocking 2 defensive players to support Hunter Henry for a touchdown. That means that Pop Douglas didn't quit. It means that he kept his head in the game, and that's, we've talked about his inconsistencies route running. He makes some mistakes. So I do think you look at that play and you say, that's a guy who wasn't used at all in the first half, but he went out there and he did his job like you always ask these guys to do. And that was a nice play by him downfield.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, that Henderson run for 11 yards, have, Campbell and Bradbury and also Mack Hollins with plus run box on that play. And also, Pop Douglas blocking 2 defenders on Hunter Henry's touchdown. I'm sure Mike Vrabel showed that a lot in the team meeting. And, he's certainly giving certain guys an attaboy. I liked how he talked about Barmore, and Barmore did have a great game, even though it didn't quite show up on the stat sheet, which we figured going in because they're so bad at right guard. But yeah, I mean, you can see this is the type of those are the type of plays that Mike Vrabel loves, because he could show that in a team meeting. And those are the little things that are going to help this team overachieve a little bit by the end of the season.
Yeah, it's buy-in. These cliche phrases we use, but that's what buy-in looks like. When you play 2 plays in the first half and you're out there in the second half blocking 2 guys downfield when you're all at 5'8", 170 pounds, that's buy-in to doing the little things. All right, we got just a couple more things we want to get to. But first, Greg wants to tell you about Gametime.
It's the NFL season. It's exciting. You got to be there in person to really get the whole vibe, get excited, root for your team. Hey, they finally won a home game on Sunday. Maybe they'll win a few more. You got to be there to cheer you guys on, or else you're going to continue to suck at home. So get out there to the game and support your guys, and you can do that through Gametime. The Gametime app gives the advantage back to fans. It's the hack for unlocking amazing tickets and experiences in a few taps. It's incredibly easy to use, and the Gametime guarantee means you can trust you'll get 100% authentic tickets on time and the best price. Plus, fees are always included. So you see, what you see is what you pay. I used them last month to go to Fenway. Couldn't have been easier. It took me like 5 minutes from starting the process to getting those e-tickets in the wallet on my phone. It was so easy. I was just looking right now. If you wanted to go down and see the Sox in the Boogie Down, you can get in for about $100, even though I don't know if I'd want to sit up there with a bunch of New York Yankees fans. But there are plenty of good seats I see in the park, including down the right field line for $187. That's all in. Make sure you go check that out. You can snag new ticket deals before anyone finds out by following your favorite teams in the Gametime app to receive alerts. You get panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. They also have the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime picks. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download the Gametime app today.
Crochet, we need 7 from you. We need 7 from you tonight, buddy. 7 solid. That's what we need. CLNS, Media Network, CLNS, Celtics All Access, behind-the-scenes content. Check them out. NBA History Channel, Patriots Press Pass, Bruins Rinkside, all those YouTube channels from CLNS. And don't forget PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Before we get to, are you ready and prepared for 3 down, 3 up, or do you want me to scratch that?
We could do it.
All right. Let me first ask you this. Or at least just kind of set you up here, because I saw your note in the email. You're not necessarily throwing any parties for the offensive line yet, are you?
No, just because of, who they've gone against. And also like this is a perfect example of like why like these PFF tweets that are just out there to get homers all excited about like Will Campbell had 22 pass blocks and no pressure. And look, Will played really well the other day, and he's played really well to this point. But you can't compare what they did in this game in terms of really there were only 9 true pass block sets in this game out of like the 23 that they ran. The rest were, moving the pocket and the boots and the deceptive plays. And that's not to say like they didn't play well, because they did. But you can't compare this game to like a game where, say, they're trailing the Buffalo Bills by 2 scores late on Sunday night, and they have to pass block every time, and it's Drake Maye in the shotgun, and he's dropping straight back. It's just different. And so I think the offensive line is doing a really good job. I do think this is where you see the difference. We talked about it a lot last year, about how frustrated I would get with Alex Van Pelt and his inability to help his offensive linemen that might need help in terms of, not just, giving them help with another blocker, but in terms of throwing different pitches and changing speeds so that the defensive linemen couldn't just pin their ears back. And so, I think this offensive line is very improved. I think that they've done a good job across the board. Morgan Moses has been really good. And I think Josh McDaniels has been really good. And so, yes, it's much better than it was last year. I just wouldn't go crazy yet about it.
Did you see the video of the Bengals offensive line from last night? Your guy, Mike,
Scott Peters. Yeah.
Your guy, Mike Giardi, was the first one that tweeted it out. And I had a quote tweet. My freaking goodness. If anybody is on Twitter, you got to check it out. At Nick C Radio, I quote tweeted. You could see Giardi's quote tweet. It was originally from at the Ghetto Gronk. And it's priceless, where 3 Cincinnati offensive linemen are blocking the same interior defensive lineman. And then it's a 3-man rush, and both outside pass rushers beat the tackles. And it's awesome. Ghetto Gronk freezes the footage. He stops, he pauses it, and you just have the 3 offensive linemen on one guy as the 2 guys on the outside are about to crush Jake Browning. And, as Greg mentioned, Scott Peters is the offensive line coach in Cincinnati, and we know what he was doing last year, who's the offensive line coach in New England. All right, time constraints before you go to Felger and Maz for later today. we'll just run through your list of people here. Let's start with your 3 down.
Yeah. Well, actually, let me just go through. I'm just going to name some guys.
Okay.
Because so obviously Marcus Jones. I mean, this is on the plus side. Obviously Marcus Jones. I mean, he basically gave the team 14 points, which sort of swayed this game and like made it a little bit better than maybe it might have been. But Drake Maye played really well. Henderson, Gibson, Diggs, Hunter Henry, Will Campbell, Morgan Moses. I would say Christian Barmore. Shout out a couple of guys who don't get many snaps. Corey Durden, Joshua Farmer at defensive tackle. Milton Williams was good. I don't think I would elevate him to great in this game because he played a lot of snaps in this game. I thought, am I going to say Jack Gibbons was good? No, I'm not going to say that. I mean, I'm going to leave him off. I didn't have anybody at cornerback. And nobody really at safety. So on the plus side, on the negative side, I would say Michael Wenu, didn't love him in this game. Anthony Jennings, Harold Landry, he did not have a good game on Sunday, and his play on the edge, their defense on the edge against the run and other things is a big worry. I thought the interior of the defensive line was great in this game, all of them, all the way. I mean, that Kyrus Tungo was my lowest rated defensive tackle, and he played great again. So they were awesome up front. Christian Ellis, not good. Marte Mapu, not great. Carlton Davis, a down, and that'll do it.
I just want to make one note here. I found this interesting. Keion White played, I think, the 6th highest amount of snaps in this game. It was a major increase to what he has done this year, and they moved him inside as well from time to time during this game. I thought it was a mixed bag for him. I thought there were a couple plays. There was one play where he was a whirling dervish in the backfield and completely, he looked like Christy Yamaguchi in the backfield. I don't know what the hell was going on, but somebody ran right by him. I think it might have been Chuba Hubbard, and I'm like, oh, Keion. He was just completely lost. But there were times. I thought Keion held the edge a couple of times. I thought Keion got, he got into the backfield on the interior. He almost blocked the punt as well. So I thought, look, if you're looking for baby steps, I did think Keion White took some baby steps on Sunday. And I think it's telling because Mike Smith said a lot about him during the week and said, no, we still think he can be an impact player. And he played a bunch of snaps on Sunday. So Keion White might not be dead just yet, folks. I'm not telling you he's going to be great, but he might not be dead just yet. All right. He's Greg. He's going to run. I'm Nick. I got to go eat lunch. We'll be back later this week to preview a very big challenge. And, of course, that's the Buffalo Bills on Sunday night. Until then, we wish all of you well.